Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD General Physician. Today we'll be discussing on one of the another interesting topic in ischemic heart disease, or we call coronary artery disease, that is acute coronary syndrome. We know very well acute coronary syndrome, meaning itself is very clear. It is acute, it is involving coronary artery, and syndrome means there is a group of disorders. It is not acute confusional state. Short form acute coronary syndrome we label as ACS, but all ACS are not acute coronary. So always use of long words, acute coronary syndrome. As usual, we'll be discussing under the different heading: definition, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigations, differential diagnosis, treatment, and complications. We know very well ischemic heart disease. We have discussed before. This one slide I have repeated again, that ischemic heart disease you can divide into stable, where there is a fixed size of occlusion of coronary artery, and that you can divide into two groups. Stable coronary artery syndrome we call obstructive coronary artery disease, which is usually stable angina, and different variety of angina will come in that. And there is one where there is a no obstruction to coronary artery, that we call INOCA, that is ischemic non-coronary artery disease. While acute coronary syndrome includes mainly unstable angina, non-STEMI and STEMI, and it also includes one of the another term which was introduced, that is MINOCA, that is myocardial infarction with non-coronary artery, non-occlusive coronary artery. So there is no obstruction to coronary artery, non-obstructive coronary artery disease or non-occlusive coronary artery disease, where the occlusion on coronary angiography is less than 50%. By and large, the term which is being utilized is acute coronary syndrome. Previously, it was utilized as acute coronary insufficiency, but that term is gone. Now we mainly utilize ACS, that is acute coronary syndrome, where we have got three common variety. We call unstable angina, non-STEMI, STEMI. Unstable angina is also called crescendo or pre-infarction angina. Non-STEMI is also called subendocardial infarct or non-transmural MI, or also on ECG we call non-Q wave MI, while transmural myocardial infarction is called acute MI, or we call STEMI, or we use the word Q wave MI. There is one another presentation of ACS is sudden cardiac death, and occasionally it can present as congestive heart failure. These are the different things which are being included. Sometimes we come across what we call as a silent ischemic heart disease. So once in a while you can come across that. So acute coronary syndrome, usually we use the word STEMI, non-STEMI and unstable angina. While chronic coronary artery disease, usually this term is not commonly utilized. We use the word stable angina, or we use the word chronic stable angina, where you got a typical Levine sign, exercise capacity may vary, and it is relieved by nitrate and relieved by rest. We have discussed before in stable angina, we also use word effort angina or exercise induced angina, etc. So stable angina is usually precipitated by stress or exertion. There is a stable plaque. It lasts for 10 to 15 minutes. It is relieved by nitroglycerin or glyceryl trinitrate or by rest. While unstable angina is because of rupture of the plaque. There is a platelet adhesion. Usually this is not associated with any change in troponin ECG will show you ST depression, which will persist. It comes at rest with minimal exertion and it lasts for more than 20 minutes. There is usually symptom signs, associated symptom signs like profuse perspiration, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, prostration, etc. And by and large, rest does not relieve pain and even poor response to glyceryl trinitrate. While non-STEMI is usually because of platelet aggregation and occlusion of small blood vessels, where you get some endocardial portion of the myocardium which is being infarcted, and that will produce ST depression instead of ST elevation, will be associated with elevated troponin. While in STEMI, there is a complete occlusion by a thrombus which will result into ST elevation with troponin positive, and there will be appearance of Q wave, while there will be no appearance of Q wave in non-STEMI. So presentation wise, we will be already discussing in a clinical symptoms. We have already discussed in ischemic heart disease. As far as ECG is concerned, we have already told you in case of unstable angina and non-STEMI, there will be ST depression. Troponin will be elevated in non-STEMI, but in case of unstable angina, it will be negative. While in case of an stable angina, usually troponin is always negative. So troponin will be strongly positive in case of STEMI. It will be positive in case of non-STEMI also, but in unstable angina, it will be negative. So this is very, very important. So ST changes and troponin becomes a very useful clinical clue to differentiate between unstable angina, non-STEMI and STEMI. So this chart we have already discussed in ischemic heart disease. Stable angina will be pain on exertion. It will be relieved by rest and nitroglycerin. Troponin will be negative. ECG will be usually normal. Unstable angina, pain will come at rest, no effect by nitroglycerin or by rest. Enzymes are usually normal and there is an ST depression. While in STEMI, there is a pain at rest, no effect by nitroglycerin. ST segment is elevated and even troponin is elevated. And during healing, you will get appearance of Q wave. While in non-STEMI, pain will come at rest, not relieved by nitroglycerin. Enzymes are elevated and there is an ST depression. ST segment is not elevated, but there is an ST depression. That's why it is also called as a non-STEMI. So it is a spectrum of disease consisting of unstable angina, non-Q wave MI or Q wave MI. We call STEMI and non-STEMI. Non-Q wave MI is called non-STEMI and Q wave MI is called STEMI. Characterized by disruption of a unstable plaque or a rupture of an unstable plaque, and that will result into ECG changes, biomarkers. So it is a group of this particular group of three classical groups which are being put in this unstable, STEMI and non-STEMI. Also they put acute coronary syndrome will include sudden cardiac death as well as congestive heart failure. Usually we also put, there are few words which are for unstable angina, that is new onset angina, angina crescendo, angina at rest, and there is a progression of angina slowly increasing in frequency and severity as well as duration, and angina in response to lower level of exertion. So even with minimal exertion or even at rest, the person gets angina. So sometimes it is also described as a pre-infarction angina or also crescendo angina, and it is because of the rupture of plaque, unstable plaque which ruptures either because of infection or because of stress, etc. So there are two terms which we commonly utilize, myocardial injury and myocardial infarction. Myocardial injury means there is an elevation of troponin which will be acute injury, which can be because of non-ischemic, can be myocarditis, cardiomyopathy, Takotsubo, or because of systemic disease like sepsis, pulmonary embolism, CKD, subarachnoid hemorrhage, etc., where you can get troponin positive. So in this condition, you will have a troponin positive. We divide into cardiac and non-cardiac, or we call cardiac and systematic. While rupture of a plaque, producing plaque disruption, decreased myocardial perfusion, and increased demand. This will result into myocardial injury with myocardial ischemia and ends up with necrosis of the myocardial tissue we call as a myocardial infarction. Classical example, coronary artery spasm. We also label that as a Prinzmetal angina or variant angina. There is another condition we call a microvascular dysfunction, or we also labeled as non-obstructive coronary artery disease, coronary embolism, increased demand in case of tachyarrhythmia, severe hypertension, increased myocardial tissue like left ventricular hypertrophy, etc. We already told you there are few words which are being commonly utilized: new onset of angina, crescendo angina, or we also call pre-infarction angina. And this includes what we call as unstable angina, where crescendo means increase in frequency, severity, and duration. While following an infarction, now if a person starts getting an anginal pain, that is usually labeled as a post-infarction angina. But in case of unstable angina, we label before a person develops an infarct, the person gets new onset of angina, it is increasing in frequency, severity, and duration, then we call that as a crescendo. And as it is followed by either STEMI or non-STEMI, STEMI or non-STEMI, that's why we also label this as pre-infarction angina. And usually pain lasts for more than 20 minutes. That is unstable angina syndrome. So unstable angina is very frequently because of obstruction of coronary artery, or by spasm, or by rupture of the plaque. In this, there is pain at rest or with minimal exertion lasting for more than 20 minutes. There is a new onset of angina with it is severe and of a new onset within prior to 4 to 6 weeks. It is crescendo pattern of pain, that is severity has increased, duration has increased, and frequency has also increased. And it is in absence of myocardial necrosis, that is no elevation of biomarkers. It is diagnosed by ST depression. There is no ST elevation. So persistent ST depression is in favor of unstable angina. Patient will have a new onset of angina, crescendo angina, angina at rest, and ECG will show you ST depression. Non-STEMI is unstable angina with myocardial necrosis. There is elevated cardiac biomarkers, and there is an ST depression with T-wave inversion. That is non-STEMI. While STEMI is sustained chest pain, almost all symptoms are same like unstable angina, but there is a profuse perspiration. Severity of the chest pain may be more. Duration is longer. Person will have associated symptoms like profuse perspiration, nausea, vomiting, hypotension, tachyarrhythmias, bradyarrhythmias, fall of blood pressure, and may be associated with cyanosis, etc. And there is an ST elevation or new left bundle branch block appearance with elevation of biomarkers. So we label any person to have a MI, or we call STEMI, that is detection of a biomarker being elevated with at least one of the following, that is classical symptoms of acute myocardial ischemia with new changes in ECG like ST elevation and Q wave appearance, and imaging studies shows non-viable myocardium, or on echo there is a regional wall abnormality being diagnosed, then we label that as MI. Or if on ECG there is an ST elevation, we call STEMI. So there are certain criteria which are being there. We'll be mentioning those. ST elevation, there is a prolonged chest pain more than 20 minutes. ST elevation in spite of nitroglycerin. In limb leads, at least 1 millimeter in two adjacent, or more than 2 millimeter in precordial leads, or new appearance of left bundle branch block, and there is a slow evolution of Q wave appearance, elevation of enzyme markers. All this favors STEMI. So this is standard description which is being given. So that is called revised definition of myocardial infarction for acute or evolving or recent MI, that typical rise and fall of biomarkers of myocardial necrosis with at least one of the following, that is ischemic symptoms, pathological Q wave, or there is an ST elevation, or depression. If there is an ST depression, then we call that as a non-STEMI. If there is an ST elevation, we call STEMI. And imaging evidence like new loss of viable myocardium or new regional wall abnormality on echo. Pathological finding of an acute myocardial infarction cannot be done usually. We don't do those pathological finding, but this is one of the things which is being included to make a diagnosis of acute MI or recent MI or evolving MI. And criteria for healing MI or healed MI is development of a new pathological Q wave in a serial ECG. Biomarkers of necrosis comes down to normal, they become normal, normalization, and ST segment becomes isoelectric and T wave becomes upright. And there is a pathological finding of healed or healing infarction. Then we call that as healed or healing infarction. So these are some of the criteria which are being utilized. There is one classification which is being done in a coronary microvascular dysfunctions, that is type 1 in absence of myocardial disease and obstructive coronary artery disease. If the person has got increased risk factors and there is a microvascular angina, we call that as a type 1. And secondary coronary microvascular disease or dysfunction is type 2, type 3 and type 4. Type 1 is in myocardial disease, type 3 is in obstructive coronary artery disease, and type 4 is iatrogenic. In myocardial disease like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, dilated cardiomyopathy, Fabry disease, amyloidosis, myocarditis, aortic stenosis, where there is a decreased supply, and in this too there is an increased demand. In this condition there is a decreased supply in all, but there is an increased demand in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and dilated cardiomyopathy. While in obstruction of a coronary artery disease like stable angina or acute coronary syndrome, that is called type 3. And type 4 is iatrogenic, or we call secondary to PCI or CABG. These are one of the way of classifying in microvascular dysfunction. While MI can be classified into spontaneous rupture of atheromatous plaque, that is called type 1, with formation of a thrombus. Type 2 is ischemic myocardial necrosis because of increased demand and decreased supply. Type 3 is because of sudden cardiac death, where you demonstrate that it is because of coronary artery thrombosis. Type 4 is secondary to PCI, where it is divided into two, where myocardial infarction is associated with PCI, that is 4A, and if it is stent thrombosis associated with PCI, it is called type 4B, and if it is restenosis associated with PCI, it is called type 4C. So myocardial infarction associated with PCI intervention is 4A, stent thrombosis 4B, and restenosis of PCI intervention associated with PCI intervention is 4C, and type 5 is myocardial infarction secondary to coronary artery bypass grafting. These are the 5 different categories which are being put, and this is well accepted, and this you should know it. So again I am repeating, type 1 is because of the rupture of unstable plaque, spontaneous rupture with formation of a thrombus. Type 2 is ischemic myocardial necrosis or MI, secondary due to increased demand and decreased supply. Type 3 is sudden cardiac death. Type 4 is following PCI, percutaneous coronary intervention, where it is divided into A, B and C, 4A, 4B and C. 4A is infarction associated with PCI, and if there is a stent thrombosis, 4B, and if there is a restenosis with PCI, it is 4C, and type 5 is following CABG. Everything is mentioned here, same thing. So spontaneous, secondary to imbalance between supply and demand, sudden cardiac death, myocardial infarction resulting in death when biomarker values are not available, then associated with PCI, associated with stent thrombosis, associated with stent restenosis, and associated with CABG. Same thing described. So definition of myocardial infarction we already mentioned before, that is biomarker changes with symptoms, with ECG changes, and demonstration of viable myocardium being lost or new regional wall motion abnormality is diagnosed, or by coronary angiography or at autopsy. That is the definition which is being preferred. We have already told you regarding type 2 that increased demand and decreased supply, that is myocardial type 2, and this is in detail which is being given. This is oxygen supply and demand imbalance, and this is secondary to what we call as a illness process, and in this you can have a different mechanism: atherosclerosis, coronary artery spasm, embolism, coronary artery dissection, sustained tachyarrhythmias, there will be increased demand, hypertension, severe bradycardia, respiratory failure, anemia, hypotension and shock. All this will have increased demand and decreased supply. You have to pinpoint that. That will be in type 2. Type 3 is sudden cardiac death, where you don't have evidence by cardiac biomarkers because person gets sudden death, and we may not have ECG changes, ECG record also. You can demonstrate that on a autopsy, but if there is an ECG which is being taken, there is a new ischemic ECG changes, or new left bundle branch block and person suddenly dies. We already mentioned 4A is PCI related, 4B is stent thrombosis, and 4C is restenosis of PCI procedure. And if it is related to CABG, it is type 5. So type 1 we already told you atherosclerotic, type 2 to type 5 is non-atherosclerotic etiology. There is one more variety we always mention, that is myocardial infarction with non-obstructive coronary artery disease, or we call MINOCA, where all clinical criteria, ECG criteria, etc. are like acute myocardial infarction. There is ST segment elevation with biomarkers being elevated, but on angiography you demonstrate that there is no demonstrable coronary artery occlusion, and coronary artery obstruction is less than 50%. It is extremely difficult to label that there is a coronary artery involvement, and that we label as MINOCA. So in MINOCA there is a troponin elevated, ST segment elevation, and there is no obstruction in the coronary artery on angiography. That is very, very typical. Very, very typical. So that is MINOCA, myocardial infarction with non-obstructive coronary artery disease. By and large, the angiography is reported as normal. There is one more variety we call Queen's syndrome, or we call hypersensitive acute coronary syndrome, or allergic angina, or allergic acute MI. It is very frequently also included in microvascular angina. It is hypersensitive inflammation leading to acute coronary syndrome. And etiology of that is, as far as acute coronary syndrome is concerned, etiology is acute rupture of atherosclerotic plaque. So basic disease is atherosclerosis. There is a unstable plaque which ruptures, there is a erosion or rupture, and following a rupture you get a platelet plaque formation and thrombus formation, resulting into occlusion of the coronary artery. So thrombus formation and thromboembolism arising on a disrupted or eroded plaque is the most common cause. There is a dynamic obstruction like coronary artery spasm or vasoconstriction. This will happen in a case of a vasospastic angina, or we call it the Prinzmetal angina, where there is a coronary artery spasm which is included in type 2. In PCI, you can have a mechanical obstruction because of stenosis or restenosis. There is a coronary artery inflammation secondary due to infection like chlamydia or herpes, and once in a while you can have a coronary artery dissection also. Secondary to unstable angina, there is an increased oxygen demand and decreased oxygen supply, either because of tachyarrhythmias or sudden shoot up of blood pressure, or because of severe congestive heart failure, severe hypoxia, severe anemia, etc. So there will be imbalance between supply and demand. There are some of the triggering factor of unstable angina like hypercoagulable stage, increased vascular resistance, coronary artery spasm, increased level of catecholamine, which is very frequently seen in an anxious person, anger, increased cortisol level, increased arterial pressure like hypertension, circadian variation, early morning, or excess of exercise, where you get increased demand, mental stress, anger, cigarette smoking, coffee, alcohol, sexual activity. In all this there is an increased demand. So there is an reduced perfusion, that is a decreased blood supply, and these are all conditions where you got an increased demand like tachyarrhythmia, severe hypertension, pregnancy, etc. While decreased supply, coronary artery spasm, microvascular dysfunction, coronary embolism, coronary artery dissection, sustained bradyarrhythmias, hypotension and shock, respiratory failure, severe anemia, etc. This will be one of the factor which will respond and give rise to what we call as a type 2 variety of MI. So decreased supply, increased demand. So hypotension, sepsis, tachyarrhythmias, hypertension, thyrotoxicosis, there is an increased demand. While hypotension, anemia, hypoxia, coronary artery spasm, there is a decreased supply. So this will give rise to factor 2 type 2 variety of myocardial infarction. Same thing mentioned here, decreased supply, increased demand. Decreased supply, severe anemia, high altitude, sulfhemoglobinemia, methemoglobinemia, carbon monoxide poisoning, or we call carboxyhemoglobin, severe hypertension, severe hypotension, severe hypoxia like status asthmaticus, collapse, pneumothorax, ARDS, consolidation, where there is a decreased supply. While increased demand in tachyarrhythmias like VTVF, SVT, PAT, flutter fibrillation, etc., thyrotoxicosis, severe anxiety, mental stress, severe exertion, pregnancy, certain drugs like cocaine, noradrenaline, adrenaline, ephedrine, etc. This is in non-obstructive coronary artery disease, like non-coronary cause, myocarditis, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, and non-cardiac disorders like pulmonary embolism, renal impairment, stroke, and sepsis. In this condition also, there is an increased level of what we call as troponin. While in coronary artery causes, we already mentioned vasospastic angina, where there is an epicardial artery spasm. Microvascular disorders like coronary blood flow is low, microvascular angina, microvascular spasm, coronary plaque disruption, thrombosis, embolism, and missed obstructive coronary artery disease. Troponin will be elevated in cardiac causes, extracardiac causes, also in MINOCA. In cardiac causes where it is non-ischemic like myocarditis, Takotsubo, and cardiomyopathy, where troponin will be elevated, and you will see also STT changes, but coronary artery will be absolutely normal. In extracardiac causes, pulmonary embolism, sepsis, stroke, and even in case of a CKD, troponin will be elevated. While in MINOCA, there will be STT changes. Here, there may not be any STT changes, but troponin will be elevated. While in this condition, that's why this is mentioned as troponin elevated with non-obstructive, troponin positive with non-obstructive coronary artery disease, non-obstructive. So these are all the conditions which can produce. But MINOCA is myocardial infarction with non-obstructive coronary artery disease like plaque rupture, coronary artery spasm, microvascular dysfunction, thromboembolism. Group 3, where there can be sudden cardiac death and we don't have troponin available, like these are some of the conditions which can be there. This will be systemic conditions. So in these conditions, you will have troponin being elevated, heart failure, myocarditis, cardiomyopathy, Takotsubo, catheter ablation, defibrillation, shock, cardiac contusion, etc. In systemic conditions, sepsis, CKD, stroke, subarachnoid hemorrhage, pulmonary embolism. In all these conditions, you can have a troponin being elevated. So elevation of troponin will be there in this condition. But these are non-ischemic. Usually we don't do troponin in these conditions. But we say that there is a myocardial injury, secondary due to systemic causes and secondary due to cardiac, but these are non-ischemic conditions. These are all non-ischemic conditions. But we don't label these as ischemic heart disease. Pathophysiology we have already discussed in ischemic heart disease group, but in short we are discussing. There is unstable plaque. That plaque ruptures or it erodes, and because of erosion now collagen tissue is exposed to blood. Platelet are being attracted. Platelet gets aggregated. We get primary platelet plug formation, which will release platelet factors, which will attract another bunch of platelets. We call secondary platelet plug formation. There is an activation of intrinsic pathway, which will give rise to formation of fibrin. That fibrin will be converted into monomer. Then they will attach together to again become a polymer, and it will be entangling RBC. Along with that we call as a formation of a thrombus. And once there is a thrombus formation, it will give rise to what we call as occlusion of the coronary artery. And secondary to occlusion coronary artery, now person will start developing unstable angina, which may end up with non-STEMI or STEMI. Non-STEMI or STEMI. So plaque rupture, occlusion leading to unstable angina, and complete occlusion will lead to STEMI. And occlusion of a small blood vessel will lead to non-STEMI. And secondary to STEMI and non-STEMI, there will be necrosis of the myocardium, which will result into elevation of biomarkers, or we call cardiac enzymes, which is secondary to necrosis. And this rupture of plaque may be secondary due to inflammation like H. pylori, chlamydia, or because of herpes infection, or even because of stress or sudden shoot up of blood pressure, etc. That can also produce rupture or erosion of unstable plaque. Occasionally it can be because of coronary artery dissection. So stable plaque, usually there is no symptoms. There may be silent ischemia and person might have a stable angina. But in an unstable plaque, there is a rupture, platelet plaque formation, thrombus formation, occlusion, and secondary to occlusion, now person gets unstable angina or may develop non-STEMI, and when there is a complete occlusion, STEMI, or person may even get sudden cardiac death if there is a massive area of infarction. So very simple: vulnerable plaque, rupture, thrombus formation. Partial thrombus formation will give rise to transient angina, and that is we call as a unstable angina. Thrombosis is more than fibrinolysis, so there will be thrombus formation. If fibrinolysis is more than thrombus formation, healing will take place, and that will give rise to patient may remain asymptomatic or may develop a stable angina. But if there is a partial occlusion, may give rise to unstable angina or non-STEMI. Complete occlusion will give rise to STEMI. Very simple. Partial occlusion will give rise to unstable angina or non-STEMI, and complete occlusion will give rise to STEMI. So 70% of the time it is asymptomatic, or in 75% occlusion, if more than 75% occlusion, usually stable angina, and if there is a fixed stenosis, by and large it gives rise to stable angina. But if there is a plaque rupture, it may give rise to further occlusion, unstable angina, and then when there is a complete occlusion, MI, or may even end up with sudden cardiac death. So asymptomatic angina and myocardial infarction. So when there is a myocardial ischemia ends up with necrosis, we develop myocardial infarction. But if there is an ischemia, it can be asymptomatic or it can be with pain, that is we call as angina. So it can be because of atherosclerosis or vasospastic or because of dissection. And it can be secondary to microvascular dysfunction also. So if there is a non-obstructive coronary artery disease, there is a microvascular dysfunction that we call as MINOCA. So in MINOCA, there may be plaque disruption, vasospasm, dissection, thromboembolism, microvascular dysfunction, or mismatch between supply and demand. We have already mentioned acute coronary syndrome can end up into STEMI or non-STEMI, which will have secondary to necrosis, elevation of CPK, MB, or troponin or LDH1, which will be elevated in STEMI and non-STEMI. But in unstable angina, biomarkers will not be elevated because in unstable angina there is no necrosis of myocardial tissue. Secondary to infarct, there will be ischemic myocardium which can end up into cardiac arrhythmias. Damage to conductive tissue which will give rise to conductive disturbances like first degree AV block, second degree AV block, complete heart block, or left bundle branch block, more common, or may even give rise to right bundle branch block. Because of infarct, myocardium is stunned and person may go into congestive cardiac failure or even cardiogenic shock. So this will be the outcome because of myocardial ischemia. If person has got a good collaterals, then amount of damage will be reduced. The amount of myocardial tissue damage will be reduced. So right from angina, myocardial ischemia, coronary artery thrombosis, infarction, arrhythmia, there is a loss of muscle, there will be remodeling, then you will get slowly dilated cardiomyopathy, or we also call as dilated ischemic cardiomyopathy. Person will have a congestive heart failure and then person will go into end stage heart disease. So that will be the slowly spectrum which will be seen in a coronary syndrome. Acute myocardial infarction, where it can be two variety, non-STEMI and STEMI. We also use some of the words like silent infarct. The person can have a pain which can be typical or atypical, or person can present as congestive cardiac failure or as left ventricular failure or congestive heart failure, where there is a combination of biventricular failure, or person can come to you with a severe resistant failure like cardiogenic shock. Person can also present as cardiac arrhythmia in the form of a block or tachyarrhythmias or bradyarrhythmias like ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, atrial flutter fibrillation, or idioventricular rhythm, complete heart blocks. Person can have rupture of myocardium producing cardiac tamponade, rupture of interventricular septum ending into ventricular septal defect. Rupture of papillary muscle can end up into acute MR and which can end into acute left ventricular failure. Even person can develop acute TR in a right ventricular infarct. There can be intramural thrombus formation and that thrombus can give rise to thromboembolism. If it is in the right ventricle, pulmonary embolism, and if it is in left ventricle, systemic embolism, where you can get systemic embolism in left ventricle and pulmonary embolism in case of a right ventricle. And sometimes person can also have sudden cardiac death. So any one of these presentation can be seen. Typical symptom which we describe is always pain is on the precordial region or in a retrosternal. Onset is sudden, can occur at rest. Character is dull, burning, heaviness, suffocating sensation, someone is sitting on the chest, etc. Radiation from precordial region right into the left shoulder, left arm along the inner side up to the tip of the little finger, may radiate to the right shoulder, right upper arm, inner side up to tip of the little finger, to the neck and to the jaw. Also it can radiate to the back, interscapular region, or it can radiate down along the retrosternal into epigastrium. Very frequently we say almost always associated with profuse sweating, nausea, vomiting, breathlessness, palpitation, hypotension, etc. The pain will be lasting for more than 20 minutes, not relieved by rest, not relieved by nitroglycerin. It will be aggravated even by slight exertion, and in unstable angina, there is increased frequency, increased duration, and with minimal exertion, even at rest. This is typical distribution which we have discussed in ischemic heart disease. Person will be holding the chest, we call Levine sign, typical distribution. The character of the pain described can be constricting, choking, heaviness, squeezing, crushing, burning, aching pain, but not sharp pain, no stabbing, no pricking, knife-like pain. These are not seen. Most commonly it is squeezing or choking sensation, heaviness, constriction, typical pain. And duration is more than 20 to 30 minutes and comes at rest. Typical character. Severity wise, person will say that I am going to die. Very severe. Good number of time they also say indigestion, pressure, or they are not able to give a description also. It is aggravated by or provoked by exertion or by exercise, emotion, anxiety, heavy meal, cold, exposure. Unstable angina will occur at rest. You can have even a decubitus angina prior to this. It is not relieved by rest and not by nitroglycerin. Associated features: nausea, vomiting, dyspnea, sweating, palpitation, syncope, acute confusion, fear of impending death, etc. Cough, wheeze can be also there. So there are good number of associated symptoms. Even person can have epigastric pain, syncope, oliguria, stroke, etc. So these are all associated symptoms which can be there. Pallor, sweating, tachycardia, fever, arrhythmias, pericarditis, mitral regurgitation, vagal activation will produce bradycardia, vomiting, or very rarely it is asymptomatic. Hypotension, oliguria, cold clammy extremities, increased JVP, narrow pulse pressure, S3 heart sound, and even heart murmur. This will be seen more with failure, congestive heart failure, and heart murmur will be seen very frequently if the person develops acute MR because of papillary muscle rupture. Once in a while you can have a atypical presentation. Atypical presentation means not a classical chest pain. Person may present as congestive heart failure or cardiac arrhythmias or sudden cardiac death or syncope, etc. By and large, the diagnosis of acute coronary syndrome is by typical history, ECG changes, and cardiac biomarkers. In acute coronary syndrome, we have already mentioned the difference between all the three, that is unstable angina. Typical history will be there in all the three, will be nearly same. ECG, ST depression in non-STEMI and unstable angina, while in STEMI, ST will be elevated. Cardiac enzyme will be elevated in non-STEMI and STEMI, while it will be normal in unstable angina. So 2 out of 3 criteria must be there for acute myocardial infarction: the typical chest pain, ECG changes, and cardiac biomarkers should be there. And we already discussed in detail all the latest criteria what are being included in STEM. We have shown this slide also before, that if there is an ST elevation, it is in favor of STEMI. If there is an ST depression with troponin positive, person will be high risk, and this will call as a non-STEMI. Troponin negative will be at low risk, and if there is a ECG which is normal, ECG which is normal and troponin negative will say that the person is having no acute coronary syndrome. STEMI, non-STEMI, unstable angina. So ECG, biomarkers and clinical history stands topmost on the list. And then you can go for coronary angiography, which will give you the idea regarding the number of artery involved, severity, etc. And if it is STEMI, then you will have to go for reperfusion. We have shown you this slide before, so I'm skipping over this. This is what we call as the STT changes. In the very early, there is a tall T wave, which is not shown here. Then you start getting a ST segment elevation. Then Q wave will start appearing. Q wave will become deeper, prominent. ST segment will start coming down. T wave will be still inverted. ST segment becomes isoelectric, but T wave is still inverted, and Q wave is prominent. When ST segment becomes isoelectric, T wave becomes upright, and persistence of a pathological Q wave, we'll call this as a HILD. This is acute. This is acute infarct. And when there is a tall T wave, we call hyperacute stage, early stage. You can see here there is an appearance of left bundle branch block. If there is an appearance of a new LBBB, you should suspect acute MI. And if this is associated with elevation of troponin, it is in favor of acute MI. Troponin will be elevated for nearly 4 to 5 days. So that typical pattern is being followed. So maximum elevation is in 24 to 48 hours, and then it will be elevated till 4th or 5th day. While CPK-MB will be for 2 to 3 days. Myoglobin is only for 24 hours. So you have to know how much will be the elevation and what will be the timing from infarct. So this is the chart which is showing you a typical troponin elevation. These are the conditions where we already shown you a slide before, where troponin is positive, but there is no coronary artery occlusion, non-obstructive coronary artery. In MINOCA, you will have a ischemia, but this will be non-ischemic, this will be also non-ischemic, where still troponin is elevated, but there is no infarct. In MINOCA, there will be infarct. There will be STT changes. So whenever you make a diagnosis of STEMI, to identify the risk factor, this is a flow chart. At your leisure time, you can go through if you are interested. What is being done, best is echocardiography, which gives you a very good idea regarding how severe is the involvement of myocardium. Then you can go for what we call as a catheterization and revascularization. And functional evaluation can be done by using echo, catheterization and ECG. You will have to utilize all those, and you can use also stress echo to find out the severity of myocardial damage, and then you can put them. There is another score we call TIMI score and GRACE score. If you are interested, you can go through the person who are going to work in an ICU. This will be helpful to them. This is any person who comes to with a chest pain and you want to differentiate between ischemic and non-ischemic chest pain. You can utilize this flow chart. This is a better flow chart for that. I've already done in a chapter of chest pain. Also, I've done in a ischemic heart disease. This is algorithm for management of ischemic heart disease, how you approach. This is management of acute coronary syndrome. This is symptom signs of acute coronary syndrome and how you approach. At your leisure time, you can go through. This is Minoka. I've done in an ischemic heart disease. So if you are interested, you can have a pause in this slide and you can go through in detail. This is what is the difference in Minoka. What exactly happens in Minoka. These are few slides. I've already discussed before. This is differential diagnosis workup for etiology of Minoka. What are the different conditions which are there and what are the diagnostic evaluation you can go for. So always utilize this. That is, there is no myocardial infarction, but there is an elevation of troponin. We have already shown these slides before. False ECG, which suggests myocardial infarction, you should keep it in mind. I've done in an ST segment elevation in detail. This is differential diagnosis of ST segment elevation. Again, I've done in detail in ST segment and STEMI mimics. This is differential diagnosis of non-infarcted Q wave appearance. You can have a Q wave appearance in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, ventricular hypertrophy, conduction abnormality, etc. So go through. These are all the investigation which we have discussed in ischemic heart disease. That is history, ECG, troponin. ECG, echo and troponin is the first thing to be done. Then investigation for risk factor. Stress testing is absolutely contraindicated whenever you suspect acute coronary syndrome. Should not be done. Angiography, which includes MR angio or CT angio, to find out severity of coronary artery occlusion, site, number, and also to rule out Minoka. This is ECG changes we have already discussed in detail. This is hyperacute T wave elevation, ST elevation with Q wave appearance. Then ST starts coming down, T wave is inverted, Q wave will become deeper and deeper. Then Q wave will persist, ST will become isoelectric, T wave will be still inverted. And then when it heals, Q wave will persist, ST is isoelectric, T wave is upright. This is called healed infarct. Depending upon which leads are involved, we can label them into inferior, lateral, anterior, and anterior we divide into anteroseptal, anterior, anterolateral. V1, V2 is anteroseptal, V3, V4 we call anterior wall, V5, V6 we call anterolateral, and posterior is ST depression in V1, V2, V3, and ST elevation in V7, V8, V9. So, and in lateral wall, lead 1, AVL, and V5, V6. While inferior wall is lead 2, lead 3, AVF. These are all the different ECG. At your leisure time, you can go through. This is one ECG. This is acute elevation of ST segment, which is relieved after rest or by coronary vasodilator. This is classical variant angina. You have to differentiate between unstable angina, transmural, and non-STEMI and STEMI. We have already mentioned the difference. You should differentiate cardiac, respiratory causes, GI tract causes, and musculoskeletal causes. We have discussed in detail in a chapter of approach to chest pain. You will come across very commonly the chest pain will be because of acute coronary syndrome, GERD, myocarditis, costochondritis, pericarditis, psychogenic, acute pulmonary embolism, pneumothorax, etc. Management of acute coronary syndrome, symptomatic, anticoagulants, antiplatelets, plaque stabilization by using high dose of statin, antiplatelet, anticoagulant, anti-inflammatory, even you might need antibiotics. Then you should stratify risk by stress testing, angiography, or we call transthoracic, esophageal, echo. You can use PTCA or we call PCI or CABG if There is no symptomatic relief by medical therapy, and there is a chance of person going into STEMI or non-STEMI in a person with unstable angina. So bed rest, oxygen, analgesics during acute MI or STEMI or non-STEMI, thrombolysis, antiplatelet, anticoagulated coagulation or antithrombin drugs, PCI or we call PTCA, balloon angioplasty with stent, which you can use drug-eluting stent or non-drug eluting stents. Bioabsorbable stents are also available. You can go for CABG, which you can be having open CABG or closed CABG. Or nowadays there is a robotic approach. Treatment of complications, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention, and post-infarction care. All these are the part and parcel of the treatment. So during ST elevation, reperfusion approach like aspirin, heparin, clopidogrel, fibrinolysis, and primary PCI. In all patients, whether STEMI or non-STEMI or unstable angina, beta blockers, glyceryl trinitrate, CCB, oxygen, morphine, ACE inhibitor, statin, etc. And you can use antithrombotic approach like aspirin, heparin, clopidogrel, or you can use GP2B inhibitors, and you can proceed for what we call as primary PCI. Revascularization procedures includes chemical we call thrombolysis and mechanical we call as a PCI or CABG. There are also now transmyocardial lesser revascularization which are being done. This is CABG, this is balloon angioplasty, this is with stent. And this is after stenting. You can see vascularization. There is a word utilized is endovascular treatment, which can be atherectomy. You remove the atheroma by using a rotabladder, and atherectomy, stenting with NATE, balloon angioplasty, grafting or bypass grafting. And in revascularization procedures, thrombolysis, PCI with stent, angioplasty, CABG, or there are hybrid procedure where you have got a combination of two. These are usually tertiary care. Reperfusion by means of pharmacological we call as a thrombolysis. There is one term very commonly utilized is MONA. MONA includes M for morphine, O for oxygen, N for nitroglycerin, and A for aspirin with clopidogrel. PCI is mechanical intervention. So fibrinolysis, indications, contraindications, if you are interested, these are absolute contraindication for fibrinolysis. These are relative contraindication. At your leisure time you can go through. These are the different procedures which are being done. This is balloon angioplasty, and this is putting in that balloon and you are inflating that and resulting into balloon angioplasty, and then you put stent inside. So after inflating you put a stent, that is we call stenting, and this is a standard slide which is being shown every time. You should take only 5 minutes for your clinical picture. Immediately person should be dispatched, and person should undergo fibrinolysis within 30 minutes. It is called emergency medical service to needle within 30 minutes. So thrombolysis should be done within that time, and he should be transported to a PCI center where PCI is available, and PCI should be performed within 90 minutes. So total time is only 2 hours. So as fast as possible, person should be diagnosed, fibrinolysis followed by PCI should be done. So door to needle time 30 minutes, door to balloon time is 90 minutes, less than 90 minutes. And this should be performed as early as possible to prevent myocardial damage. So reperfusion time should be less than 120 minutes. These are all those charts what we have shown you before. But in India, we face all this problem. Door to balloon time should be less than 90 minutes. We know time is muscle, but we always get this obstruction on a road. But now we have got the facilities of lifting the patient to a hospital by air. So this can be reduced. Now there are also one which is having a full facilities of angioplasty, thrombolysis with angioplasty which can be done. You can go for what we call as a stem cell therapy, but not yet successful. In Minoka, it will be helped by what we call as a lifestyle modification, where regular exercise, healthy diet, avoid smoking, avoid alcohol, all this will be helpful. As far as complication of acute MI is concerned, there are acute complication and chronic complication. Acute complication are almost in 75% of the people, where you can get cardiac arrhythmias, extension of infarct, reinfarction, congestive heart failure, acute pulmonary edema, cardiogenic shock, pericarditis, mural thrombus, thromboembolism, myocardial wall rupture, cardiac tamponade, papillary muscle rupture and acute MR, which will end up into acute congestive heart failure, rupture of interventricular septum, acute VSD, and person will end up with acute congestive cardiac failure. These are some of the acute complications, and even sudden cardiac death we can put. In chronic complication, ventricular aneurysm, which can end up with thrombosis, thromboembolism, infection, rupture, congestive heart failure, cardiac arrhythmias. Person can present as a congestive heart failure, mural thrombus and thromboembolism, papillary muscle dysfunction and MR, cardiac arrhythmias, can present as a congestive cardiac failure, Dressler syndrome, cardiac neurosis, shoulder hand syndrome, post-MI angina, etc. can be complication as far as chronic is concerned. You can remember like ACT rapid, A for arrhythmia, C for congestive cardiac failure, T for tamponade, R for rupture, A for aneurysm, P for pericarditis, I for infarct, and D for death and Dressler syndrome, whichever way you want to remember. So these are all the different complications which you can get: stroke, cardiogenic shock, congestive heart failure, cardiac tamponade, arrhythmia, pericarditis, Dressler syndrome, etc. So I end my lecture here. Thank you for taking out time. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate that you have spent some time with me, and I hope this lecture will be very helpful to you. So this is the most important. Ask as a full question, and very commonly you will come across this group of people in your everyday practice.